right. As Jennifer said, my name is Dyane Roesel, and I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions at Purdue University. And I'm very excited to be here today. And as you can see on our screen, just a little bit about Purdue. We are about the persistent pursuit of innovation where people bring their best and learn to build a better world together. And so to begin your process towards building the best you and looking towards a graduate school education, I have some tips for letters of recommendation today. So I have here on the screen a few of the points that we're going to be covering. So we will talk about getting organized, building your case, choosing recommenders, requesting recommendations, and how to follow up. So let's go ahead and move to our next slide. As we begin learning about the recommendation process, I would like to stress how important it is to take some time to get organized and plan your process for obtaining letters of recommendation. It is very tempting to just begin reaching out to professors and supervisors and start asking for those letters. However, if you take a little time to get organized and think through the process, you can greatly improve the quality of the letters you receive. The best place to begin is to visit each institution's website and review the application guidelines for each program to which you plan to apply. Once you understand requirements and processes for submitting your letter of recommendation, the next step is to organize your information. Many prospective students find the best way to organize their to organize their program requirement information is to create a spreadsheet. Simply begin by making a list of the institutions to which you plan to apply and the programs that you are interested in each institution. Read each program's letter of recommendation requirements closely and add important details to your spreadsheets for future reference. For example, you may find that one institution requires all recommenders to be professors, while another institution may require a combination of people, such as professors and supervisors, or a recommender who has experience in your preferred area of study. It is also important to note the total number of letters of recommendation that are required by each program in your spreadsheet. The number of letters required to apply will vary from program to program and institution to institution. So do not assume that all graduate programs within the same institution have the requirements for the same deadlines. For example, at Purdue Graduate School, one program may require 5 letters of recommendation where another may only require 2. The most common letter required is 3. You may also want to add a list of possible recommenders for each program to your spreadsheet, noting any special connections or experience related to that particular recommender to ensure that you do not forget to include it in your request. Once you are satisfied with your spreadsheet content, you will want to begin building your case by gathering information about yourself. To build your case, you will want to give your recommenders as much information as possible. This is a very important step because that information is what helps your recommenders help you, in other words, write a better letter. When trying to decide what type of information to provide, think through the skills and abilities that are most needed to be successful in the graduate programs which you want to apply to. Next, think about your own qualities and successes. What information can you provide to your recommender that will demonstrate that you possess the skills and abilities to succeed in the graduate program you've chosen? Remember, your recommenders want to be successful and they want you to be successful. So the more information that you can provide, the better your letter will turn out. The type of information you may want to consider providing is listed on the screen. Collecting and organizing this type of information before sending it to your recommenders can save you and your recommenders a great deal of time. If you are strategic about how you present your information and the recommenders you select, your letters can potentially help cover gaps in other areas of your application material. For example, if you are applying to a graduate school that values research, but your research background is minimal, a well-written letter of recommendation from a professor that has worked with you and knows your potential to carry out meaningful research would be a very beneficial letter to submit. Once you have organized your information in a manner that supports your case, you are ready to choose your recommenders. When you begin your selection process, Remember, not every recommender has the same skill set when it comes to building up and making others shine. So sometimes the people that know you the best may not have the best skill set for writing that letter. So that's something that you need to consider when asking for letters of recommendation. So you need to consider choosing recommenders that have strong letter writing skills. You will need to think through your list of potential recommenders and decide which recommenders have the time and ability to write. The strongest recommendation you need to complement, Oh, I'm a little nervous today for some reason. Okay, the strong recommendation you need to complement your other application materials. So you really want to think through what you have and who you can ask and see who can put that together for you in the most striking manner. So if you're struggling to choose between 2 or more recommenders, you may want to go with a person who has more experience writing letters or has history of writing particularly strong letters of recommendation. You may also want to give some thoughts to how likely the recommender will be to submit your letter on time. It is perfectly acceptable to ask other students or recent grads if they have any advice. With that said, the best letters of recommendations are always written by those who know you well. Just keep these other points in mind. Our next topic is asking for a recommendation. There is no one ideal way to request a recommendation letter. Your relationship with and access to the potential recommenders will determine your best course of action. However, there are certain steps you can take to facilitate the process. Make your request early and in person if possible. Ideally, you want to give your recommenders 8 to 10 weeks to complete their letters. Some recommenders receive a very high volume of requests, so it is always a good idea to plan ahead and submit your request before the last-minute rush. That will likely improve the chances that you will receive a more personalized letter, which is very important, so you want to beat that rush. When making your request, be sure to remind your recommenders why they know you, because it may have been a little while since they've had you in class or they worked with you, whatever the case may be. So you want to give some little antidote in there that will help them connect your name to the information you've provided. Next, specifically request a strong letter of recommendation, one that will set you apart from other applicants. Be sure to add any special details to your request that will help the recommender understand your passion for your graduate program. If appropriate, you can also briefly share future career goals or past experiences that support your ambitions. Your goal is to make a case for yourself without overstating your need. Your recommenders are busy, so be as brief as possible while pointedly emphasizing your strengths. Let's move on to discussing how to communicate recommendation requirements. Professors and other recommenders are busy people, as we just discussed, which means you may need to remind them to submit their letters. To help yourself stay organized, you can set reminders on your calendar to check the status of your letters in the application system or make notes in your spreadsheet if a certain application doesn't offer that function. Many recommenders will let you know when their letters have been sent, but not everyone will. So it's always a good idea to monitor progress yourself. And if you find that a recommender is not submitting and you're getting very near to your date, it's okay to reach out to that recommender and ask. And if there are some delays, it's also okay to reach out to the program of interest that you've applied to and let them know about those difficulties. You will often find they're very understanding. Your final task related to recommenders is to thank them for writing your letters. Writing letters of recommendation takes careful thought and can be time consuming. So let your recommenders know that you appreciate their efforts with a thank you note. And if you have time and you think about it, it's also nice to circle back when you do have an offer and thank them again and let them know where you're attending. That usually makes them pretty happy. Before we conclude, I would also like to share a few application tips with you. It's well known that graduate admission committees view letters of recommendation more favorably when they are sent confidentially, meaning the applicant has not read the letter. So if an application offers the opportunity to waive the right to see your letter of recommendation before they are submitted, it is always wise to do so. It's usually a little checkbox. You can just check that box. Tip number 2, if you would like to get a head start on contacting your recommenders, begin your application for admission by filling out the basic application information. Enter your recommender names and emails. Save the application and log out. You can come back and finish your application later, but what this does for you is upon saving, the request for the letters of recommendation auto-send right out of the application. So that gives your recommenders a little bit more time. Tip number 3, another thing to keep in mind is that you can complete your admission application before all of your all of your recommendations arrive. So if you go through and you have your application already and you'd like to submit it and it's prior to the deadline, you can go ahead and submit it because your letters of recommendation can catch up. You just want to ensure that all of the letters of recommendation arrive before the program deadline for the application. So I'd like to point out that these tips can vary from institution to institution. I know that they all work at Purdue University, but you may again want to review those application requirements very carefully. So that concludes my presentation for today. I've got a little contact information on the screen here for you. If you have questions, you can email gradinfo@Purdue and our website there. So I'd like to thank you again, Jennifer, for inviting me to attend, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Diane. Any
You're welcome.
questions about letters of recommendation? I know there was a question earlier that I think we answered. Is it better to collect letters of recommendation from current professors so they remember you? That was a question we got before you came on when Katina was talking about the application process.
I think that you want to go with the people that know your skills and abilities the best. And in that midsection there, I talked about that. So you want to use your letters strategically as possible. And so think about who you know, what experiences you've had, because maybe you had some better experiences or noteworthy experiences or experiences that apply directly to the program that you've decided to apply to earlier on in your career. I wouldn't leave that information out. That recommender is probably also going to remember you if you jog his memory or his or her memory, as I said, by just giving a few anecdotes about what it is that you did together and why it was successful or important to you. And then they will, if they don't know, they will go back and look, because it's been our experience that people really do want to help their applicants out as much as they can and give the best recommendation they can. So if you support your request with the information they need to do that, they'll be happy to provide it.
Yeah, and Dr. Hardy from our office has a good suggestion in the chat. If there's someone you haven't seen for a while, just remind them of who you are, maybe include a picture. So that's a great idea. Yeah. And I always encourage people that are not going to go to grad school like right after their undergrad, if they're going to take some time off, to kind of touch base every once in a while, maybe every 6 months, with those faculty that they had really good relationships with, and just say, this is what I'm doing now. How are classes going for you? I really enjoyed when we did this, or somehow jog their memory, because you don't want to get, kind of struggling for who are those faculty members that will remember me. But if you're kind of touching base with them every once in a while, they are more likely to remember.
Exactly.
Other questions? Got about a minute.
I think the best thing that I can just remind you of that's important is to read those requirements in each program for each institution that you're going to apply for, because they do vary, and you want to make sure that you provide them with exactly what they ask for, especially if they're asking for a variety of recommenders. And you send all professors when they really wanted a supervisor or an employer or some other type of expertise than what you offered.
Yeah, good point. Okay, well, thank you, Diane.